Welcome to the ChargePoint podcast, brought to you by FLEXECHARGE, your gateway to the future of EV charging. In each episode, we dive deep into the world of EV infrastructure, offering insights and perspectives from industry leaders, innovators, and the people at the forefront of deploying charging solutions and networks. Join us to explore the exciting developments that are accelerating our world towards sustainable mobility.
And welcome to a new episode of the ChargePoint podcast. I'm Christophe and I'm from FLEXECHARGE. One of the things I truly enjoy on this show is speaking with innovative companies, especially those that are not only solving real problems, but doing so with ambition, strong technical foundations, and a clear vision for scale. Today's guest checks all the boxes. I'm joined by Mike Lazelle, CEO and co-founder of Kwetta, and that's Kwetta, a company born in New Zealand that's building next-generation charging hardware with built-in grid intelligence and aiming to solve one of the most pressing issues for charge point operators: how to deploy high-power charging without waiting years for grid upgrades or spending millions on infrastructure reinforcement. In November, Kwetta secured a Series A round to support its expansion beyond New Zealand and Australia, and Mike has recently relocated to Europe with his family to lead that push firsthand, starting with markets like the Benelux region, the Nordics, Germany, and beyond to the UK and more. In this episode, we talk about what makes Kwetta's technology different, how it tackles grid congestion and connection bottlenecks, and why the company sees heavy-duty EV charging as the next big frontier, one that will challenge everything we know about power capacity, reliability, and infrastructure. If you're a CPO looking to stay ahead of the curve or simply curious about the technologies that will underpin the next phase of electrification, this is an episode you don't want to miss. Let's dive in. And welcome to this new episode with a very interesting guest, who flew all the way from down under, from New Zealand, to be here. Well, yeah, I know you're touring in Europe. Welcome, Mike from Kwetta.
Thanks, Christophe. How's it going? Great to be here. Appreciate
great.
being on the podcast.
Thank you for taking the time in your busy schedule as you're touring Europe. We'll come back a bit to this part. So, as always, let's get started straight up with you. So our guests get a feel of who you are, where you're coming from. So what's your origin story that led you to the position where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. And update, I guess, for the listeners, actually have moved here now. So have moved the family. Have moved the family over from New Zealand 1 month ago. So brought our kids. The kids are in school and everything. So
and where can people find you then in Europe now?
We're in Amsterdam.
Great. So people know now. If you're in Amsterdam, you should pay a visit to Kwetta. So so tell us a bit about your background that led you to where you're today.
Yeah, I studied electrical engineering a long time ago now, more than 20 years ago at one of the universities in New Zealand. And on my very first day at uni, I actually met a fellow co-founder, Rob, and he was already so knowledgeable about electricity grids, power electronics, and electrification. And even on that very first day, way back, he was building like incredible technology just from his dorm room. And so we met that day, and it's a really formative time in my life because I chose to do electrical engineering based on that. And it was only years later that we actually started Kwetta, but I followed my path working for TSOs, working for DSOs down under in North America, and now coming out and doing the same in Europe, always developing and operating power grids and developing power generation. So think solar, think wind, think gas-fired power gen. And we founded Kwetta in 2021, three co-founders, all electrical engineers, but with quite different backgrounds in electrical engineering. And here we are.
Strong. So tell us, we love entrepreneurial stories. So how, with the inception, how did you start drawing on a napkin, the plan? I mean, what was the insight or something that triggered really the start of Kwetta?
Yeah, it was like that. It sounds cliche, but it was as close to a napkin or an envelope as you could get. To be honest, right on the very first day that we decided we were going to go and build a business together, and we didn't quite know what that was. We had some ideas. There was this idea of on the table of an MV connected multi-headed charge system. That's what it was called. And the boys and I were messaging about it. And I just said, this is a terrible idea. MV connected, that makes no sense. I can't see any of that out in the world. And they were talking about, it could help with all of these other problems. It wasn't clear what they were. And I just discounted it. And then over time, Dustin and I were against it. We were thinking of these other ideas. Rob was secretly working on it in the background.
Sneaky.
And he wasn't, sneaky. And he wasn't telling us about it. And then maybe 3 months later, he came and showed us his designs. Mm-hmm. And both Dustin and I, we started considering what's going to be the big problem. Mm-hmm. It's 1 million heavy vehicles connected to the grid, all charging and discharging all at one time. Hold up, that's a massive problem. And the hardware that's needed to do that does not exist. We can see what's out there. There is nothing that is ready for this future. So we don't know if anyone's going to do it either, but someone needs to. Electrification at scale can't happen without this. So that's what we kind of got clear on the problem. And then Rob showed us what he had designed, and it was this simple solution, but with incredible technology that does all of the charging and solves all of the problems for the grid, all in one box. And so that's kind of how it came together. And it was a sneaky Rob doing it behind our back.
Fantastic. You can thank him for that, I'm sure. So you got convinced pretty fast, I can hear. So tell us, so you had a little sentence like the charging, the grid problem all in one. But can you elaborate a little bit on concretely what problems is Kwetta solving? And without going into much details, how do you do it?
Yeah, neat. The primary problem is obviously the charge piece. So whether that's, there's a range of different technologies in the DC fast charge on the vehicle side. You've got CCS2 as the most common dominant protocol now, which spans anything from 100 kilowatts up to about 400 kilowatts is the natural peak limit. And then above that, we have a new charge standard called MCS, and that's what's going to take us into the future. So that's going to charge 400 kilowatts up to 1,500 kilowatts. There's multi-megawatt ferries charging at MCS now. And so these two pieces of technology, this is what Kwetta Prime does all those charge powers. You can mix and match from a single unit for CCS2 or MCS. And there's a whole range of grid support functionality that the power grid of back then it was the future, but the power grid of today actually needs in order to support such high demand on the grid. And the box also does that full suite of services, and that's a range of things. Some of those services FLEXECHARGE is very familiar with, like flexible response, but others of this functionality, there isn't a hardware system to do it. And these are things like full range voltage support, sub-second contingency response, and harmonic mitigation.
Okay, yeah, you start to get me a little lost on the technicalities here, but I'm sure the audience who's a super techie also would follow you so far. Okay, so where does that place you in terms of if we want to put you a bit in a category as a supplier? So how would you define yourself?
The high power charger that can get a site connected in months, not years, and scale from 6 to 60 heavy vehicles.
That's it. That's good. Sharp and sweet. Yeah, can see. That's really well prepared. Okay, great. That sets the stage. So let's share a bit about your insight on the market now. Let's talk a bit about the CPO challenges and the value. So we know CPOs face really rising grid costs and capacity issues. So how does Kwetta help them to stay profitable and scalable?
Just to sort of cuts back to those core value props, CPOs, I'd call it one of the core issues they're facing, as you say, Christophe, is rising grid costs and prolonged grid delays. And what that means is that the most critical sites that are needed for electric uptake are getting stuck in connection queues, or either due to the DSOs being unable to upgrade the grid in time, or because the cost is prohibitive. We're talking millions of euros for a grid upgrade for a new CPO connection.
That's perfect.
And how how we can help CPOs is addressing those key problems. So getting it connected much faster, and then lowering the cost of that. And we do that by solving the underlying grid issues that DSO is facing at that connection.
Right. And that's without any battery connected. I mean, because this has been a proposition we've been seeing emerging on the markets the latest year, but you really clearly made it clear when we discussed in the preparation that said, well, this is how you differ. You don't have a battery connected with your chargers, right?
That's right. We would say out of the box, most of the time, the DSO underlying problems cannot actually be completely mitigated by a battery. They actually need this other functionality. And batteries can help, but very often they're not going to be able to take a no to a yes. So with Kwetta, what we say is full grid supporting functionality is going to answer a huge number of the DSO's problems. And if you still need a battery to further enhance that capacity, you can always plug that into Prime. We have separate units and separate auxiliary batteries that can be attached. And also we can work in HARMON-E with existing battery storage systems.
All right, so maybe that's it's one I have to grab this one when you say HARMON-E. So how would your solution work in collaboration with, again, if you look at the landscape with actors that come like ourselves at FLEXECHARGE with the HARMON-E platform? Yeah. So generally speaking, how would it work with the intelligent, or how would it enhance intelligent load management platforms or existing setup at the CPO site?
Yeah, absolutely. I just realized the crossover there with the HARMON-E of the platform. So I've actually been checking out the HARMON-E platform and a huge fan. So fantastic, and congratulations to the team. I would, in simple terms, we support all the common protocols that HARMON-E platform currently supports, and in addition, some ultra fast comms links that I would fully expect HARMON-E to either support now or in the future. And so you would be able to integrate a Prime site with the rest of your fleet of sites, and we'll call it unlock more capacity at local sites, and also that local site to participate in exactly the same markets that HARMON-E allows you to do. So I see HARMON-E and as a software solution and a orchestration layer being a great fit for Kwetta as a as a hardware solution for charging and grid services.
Right. Makes sense, yeah. Thanks for that precision.
Yeah.
So can you maybe walk through a bit of a real example, maybe from a depot, a hub, or whatever, your choice, where your platform improved performance and avoided major cost as described earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably New Zealand's a long way away from Europe. And so maybe it's neat for some of your listeners to hear, there's actually parts of the New Zealand power grid that are as constrained, if not worse than, call it, parts of the Netherlands or Belgium or Germany or the UK. And we had one particular site halfway between sort of two of the big cities in New Zealand, Auckland and Tauranga, right, and critical for charging. There were 4 different CPOs trying to deploy there, or all of the usual leading networks that are prevalent in Europe as well. And all of them had placed good applications. All of them were approaching the DSO. We are really desperate to get power here. It's critical for electrification. There's people in the paper complaining about lack of access to EV charging. And unfortunately, the DSO was not able to give approval because there was this underlying issue, in this case, with voltage and voltage security. So the grid got unstable during different times of the year, and it meant that they just could not take the risk of more charging adding to that. And obviously the CPOs had taken all the existing solutions to try to solve that, and they could not. And so our partner in New Zealand approached the DSO with, hey, we would like to try Kwetta out in this case. And we understand that Kwetta can provide an additional solution which could help with your issue. And Christophe, the long story short is that customer was facing a 2-year delay and more than $1 million in grid upgrade cost for this hub site, and we got it connected in 5 months and completely avoided the grid upgrade.
Yeah, and just to get an idea of the site, what kind of configuration or type of chargers, how much power are we talking about? Yeah,
that's a 500 kilowatt site that's planned to go 1 megawatt and beyond with 6 times 200 kilowatt bays.
Before we continue with the show, I have to tell you, If today's talk about megawatt charging and depot electrification has your head spinning with grid questions, you need to check out our free masterclass, The Power of Local Load Management. It's hosted by Robert, our CTO at FLEXECHARGE, and in just 30 minutes, he breaks down how to keep high-powered charging depots running smart, stable, and grid compliant. Watch it now at flexecharge.com/resources. And now, back to the show. So let's move on to grid and future energy systems. So with grid congestions becoming really the norm, as we discussed in countries like Germany and Netherlands, again, where you're coming from, New Zealand. So how does Kwetta help CPOs deal with regulatory and technical constraints also?
Yeah, it's a great question. The DSOs, I guess we probably look at the DSO problem a little differently, Christophe, because we have been the DSO ourselves in the past. And they're in a very challenging regulatory position, right? By nature, they're all monopolies and they're all heavily regulated. Right. I describe them as between a rock and a hard place.
Yes.
In that they are responsible for all of the operational risk of the grid. If the lights go out, there's only one phone call that gets made, and there's to the CEO of the DSO.
Yes.
Yep. And also, they're facing, we'll call it unprecedented new demand. The grid was only built for 1.5% annual load growth, and now we're seeing 3 up to 5% load growth with all of the electrification and AI coming on board. And so the DSO is an extremely challenging place where they themselves are asking for better, faster regulation to enable them to be more innovative and try solutions. And how we, I guess, support this conversation is by taking, we'll call it, where they're at in terms of the local geography. What is your regulation on new connections? What is your ability to try out an innovative solution? And if you don't have much ability, what if we just solve the problem that you're facing? Could you approve the connection then? And our answer is anything in that range of things, Christophe. Sometimes there's the ability to try very innovative structures with new commercial arrangements, new technical solutions, and new markets to incentivize it. That's with some DSOs. And other DSOs, they're like, this all sounds great, but we don't have those things in place. And we would take it as simple as, what if we just solve the background solution? Could you approve the connection? And they say, well, yeah, I can do that. I sign it here. And so we support them by having a range of options, and they can pick one that's going to work for them.
All right, clear. Thank you for that. So, and if we talk a bit about the some of the most innovative aspects of the market as it's evolving, which we are as a company also very much focused on. So are you actively supporting participation in flexibility markets like FCR or local flexibility markets? Well, generally speaking, how do you approach and see this opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. Flexibility markets, as you guys are extremely aware of being leaders in the space, they're a very important piece of the grid puzzle. The flexibility market addresses the generation problem. When there's an oversupply during certain times of the day and year, or too much load at other times, the ability for a marketplace to provide signals to turn loads up and down on the demand side is critical. And so we support it by having open protocols and interfaces for systems and aggregators to participate in. So call it send signals to a prime unit to respond to a flexibility demand from a particular system. And also with some bespoke protocols and systems which would enable particular sites to connect faster and we'll call it participate in markets that are only just emerging, things like a voltage support market, and there's actually a range of them.
All right. Well, we'll definitely not done talking about this topic for sure. And so a last word on this. So what role do you see CPOs playing in the energy system of tomorrow? Charge point operator, which is defined as a classic role, but how do you see it evolving in short?
Yeah. What we're going to see from my perspective, Christophe, is more heavy electric vehicle uptake. And the critical piece to that is that it becomes two directional and they become grid supporting natively. And so that imagine a heavy vehicle charging is natively safe for the grid, so it doesn't make it any worse. And ideally, grid supporting, it can actually address issues that arise. And so CPOs have a very important part to play in that, because they own and operate the networks where many of these heavy vehicles are charging. And so I think being technology enabled to participate in these markets, like the flexibility market, at an early stage is really critical for CPOs. And I think that the CPOs that have a strong strategy in this area and great partners like yourselves and ourselves are best placed to win.
I agree, of course, on that vision. Absolutely, yeah. All right. Let's move on a bit. Talk about your strategy, your rollout, and the road ahead. So, so what does the next 12 months look like for Kwetta?
Yeah. So we've spent the first, we call it 4 years of Kwetta, building an ultra reliable platform. And so we have more than 40,000 charge sessions, 16 operating sites in Australia and New Zealand, and it's growing really rapidly. But the part we're most proud of is that our rolling 30-day uptime is north of 99.7%, sometimes up to 99.9 on a month-to-month basis. And that's an incredibly hard thing to do, because every single piece of component in a system end-to-end has to be designed, optimized, and operated to deliver that. So I'd say we've now developed a product that meets the vision we set out with, but we've also got the reliability to critical infrastructure grade, which was always what was needed. Heavy transport's different. Heavy transport relies infrastructure, always charges. The truck can't wait at the depot, it can't go on to the next site. It's not like light vehicles. And so our next stage, Christophe, is we've now entered Europe. The challenges that we've built the product for are the biggest here, the most pressing. We are spending this first few months finding the right partners who will innovate with us, who will have a driver to win in their market, and we will partner with, we'll call it a small group. And then once we have done that, then we'll spread our focus to scaling it.
All right. So the word is out. If you are a company out there listening to this and think it sounds exciting, you can get in touch with Mike if you think you can participate to this adventure. For surely an exciting one. Okay, great. And in terms of, so no geographical particular focus or that you want to share?
Yeah, good question. I would say absolutely a Benelux and I'll say the Nordics focus. So Denmark, Sweden in particular. But also we're keeping a very close eye on Germany and the UK. So I know that's quite broad, but
I understand for sure. I mean, it's you're going where the pains are, and the pains are spreading. So that's we totally know that, absolutely, yeah. So I understand your focus, yeah. And any other updates or launches or partnership that you want to tease about, or we can come back and do that again in half a year and see where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just say watch this space. Yeah, there certainly are some really exciting announcements coming up, but we'll keep those for ourselves until we make them.
All right, great. Yeah, that's a teasing here today where we recorded in the beginning of October, just for people, for the listeners to understand. So final two questions. So if you could give one piece of advice to a CPO scaling their network today, what would that be?
Trucks are an entirely new game.
Yeah,
it's a completely different set of risks and challenges. That even just the power levels are an entirely new dimension and are introducing entirely new challenges that have never been seen before. So I think just like the light vehicle, technology and ramp up, hit Europe, hit the world in 2016. I think we're in that exact place again with heavy vehicles in 2025, and don't consider that what you know about the charging world is the same with trucks.
Yeah, you gotta rework your plan and everything. Yeah, your plan, your suppliers potentially, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I agree more. Yeah, and and a little perspective on. If we push for 26, what excites you the most about 2026?
It's going to be what I talked about before, is working with these close partners, these innovators, that we find each other over this 3-month period that we're working with right now, and get these pilots in the ground, get these very important proof points in, which will then enable us to expand, we'll call it, all of the benefits and potential of the technology, but electrification in general. I mean, what I love about this industry, Christophe, is we're all trying to achieve the same thing. We all have seen an electric future, and we know that there's challenges and risks to getting there, and we want to face them.
Absolutely, yeah. Exactly. We need to collaborate to succeed in the end, yeah. Grow the big cake together.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike, for taking the time, and welcome to Europe again on behalf of the industry, if I may be so, take my big hat on. And fantastic. We'll keep an eye on your company, and hopefully there'll be some discussions also. So wishing you a great day. We'll be in touch.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Christophe. Really appreciate being on the podcast and meeting the team.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the ChargePoint podcast. A big thank you to Mike, CEO and co-founder of Kwetta, for joining me and sharing a story that really resonated, not just because of the technology, but because of the clarity of purpose behind it. What stood out to me, and I hope to you as well, is how Kwetta is solving real-world grid challenges that CPOs are facing right now: overloaded networks, long connection delays, and massive infrastructure costs. We talked about how the system can get a charging site live in months, not years, without needing a local battery, while still supporting the grid, not just drawing from it. That's quite a game changer, if you ask me. Mike also gave us insight into the future of heavy-duty EV charging and why it demands a completely different approach to power planning and reliability. If you're scaling your network, this is exactly the kind of forward thinking worth paying attention to. If you found this episode valuable, please take a moment to follow or subscribe to the podcast on your platforms of choice, share with colleagues who are navigating the same infrastructure challenges, and of course, please give it a nice review. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to exchange ideas with others shaping the future of e-mobility and receive and discuss suggestions for guests to have on the show. I'm Christophe, and this has been another episode of the ChargePoint podcast. Thanks for listening, and as always, keep charging forward.